Welcome to Dick Morris Democracy. When the government is broke and spends money it doesn't have, prints money with nothing to back it up except Washington's say-so, piles up debt so it has no hope of repaying it, and keeps running larger and larger deficits. Don't call it irresponsibility or fiscal madness or reckless economics. No, nowadays you got to call it by the name academics have come up with, MMT, Modern Monetary Theory. BS would be more accurate. Here's the dirty little secret. The government wants inflation. It roots for it, encourages it, it even needs it for one simple reason. There is no other way to pay off the huge national debt or even pay the annual debt service and interest but with devalued dollars. They never put a line in the budget for debt repayment. But if the Democratic policies cause inflation of, say, 10%, and it looks like that's what they're doing, it means the dollar will lose 10% of its value. That's the equivalent of paying off 10% of the debt. Right now, that would come to about $2 to $3 trillion, enough to pay for all of their big spending. Meanwhile, Biden perpetuates the fraud that he won't raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. But if the currency, your salary, your 401k, loses 10% of its value, how's that different from a huge, huge, huge tax increase? But the Democrats hope you don't notice. The renowned euthanasia expert Rita Marker said verbal engineering precedes social engineering. And now the genius linguistic engineers of the left have come up with a new word for crazy: modern monetary theory. Here's the theory that grown men and women with PhDs in economics are pushing. Deficits don't matter. Run them up as high as you want. Keep printing money to your heart's content. Don't worry about the national debt. As the song says, don't worry, be happy. No matter how much you spend, there'll be no inflation. Modern monetary theory is like the sexual revolution after the birth control pill was developed. If it feels good, do it. If it sounds like a good cause, you just need the extra votes, don't worry, send out the checks. But what if someone suggests that the dollar is no longer worth the paper on which it's printed? It's not backed by gold or silver, and there's no serious effort to pay back the national debt we're racking up. Well, sorry, you just have to take the U.S. government's word for it. Economists call it a fiat or sovereign currency. Here it is, take it or leave it. As long as every country does the same thing, no one has an advantage. All national currencies are subject to the same suspicion, equally. Some people might put their money into gold and silver. But what are you going to do? Carry the gold bars around in your purse? Then there are bitcoins and other forms of cryptocurrency. But try using that to buy groceries. Hey, remember, we're the government. We'll never default because we can print as much money as necessary to cover our debts. Inflation? What's all that excess money doing sloshing around in the economy? There's now about $2 trillion out there. What if it all shows up at the store at once and drives prices through the roof? Well, remember, we're still the government. We have the power to tax. We can always sop up the extra cash by raising taxes, the MMT theorists say. We can pay out subsidies with our left hand and then tax it back with the right one. We're fiscally ambidextrous. But how easy is it to pass a tax increase? With Republicans in Congress, would it be that simple to give out stimulus checks one month and tax them back the next? How would the voters feel about that? Will politicians have the courage, or will they just let inflation roar ahead and keep spending money to cushion its effects? Don't be a fuddy-duddy. The concept of overspending is so yesterday. Joel Griffith, an economy and taxation expert at the conservative Heritage Foundation, puts it this way. There seems to be a presumption we could just get anything. In the past year, during the COVID and since, we've seen an implementation of some of the ideas of MMT on a monumental level. Joel is my guest this week. You'll meet him in a moment. In 2019, the federal budget deficit was $2.4 trillion. Now it's $5.1 trillion, and the Congress's spending binge continues. The Washington Times writes that MMT proponents have circled the president. One of the school's most influential members, Stephanie Kelton of Stony Brook University, was a longtime economic advisor to Bernie Sanders. She's the one who wrote Biden could go bigger and not pay for it the old way. By the old way, she means writing a check. How yesterday? Get with it. This is all music to the ears of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who says MMT is the ticket to a Green New Deal and other enormous projects. But even such a doctrinaire left-wing economist as Nobel laureate Paul Krugman won't drink the Kool-Aid. He called MMT Calvin Ball, a reference to the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes, where the duo play a game and make up the rules on the fly. The problem is that modern monetary theory is the fiscal equivalent of telling an alcoholic in a bar that one more won't kill you, even as he gets ready to drive home. As Joel Griffin has written, there needs to be a very stern warning sent to Republicans and Democrats that if you're going to dramatically grow the size of government by printing money, you're simply going to run the risk of higher inflation. He adds this is not a new thing, they've just given it a new name. And there's no doubt these theories have worked their way into the administration. But the Fed and the White House see no danger in inflation. In fact, they even like it. The Consumer Price Index did rise 0.8% in April, an annual pace of almost 10%. Gas prices have more than doubled. Lumber has quadrupled. Bacon is up 8% a year. Ground beef up 5%. But the White House says, don't worry, be happy. As prices go up all around us, two members of Biden's Council of Economic Advisors said, we think the likeliest outlook over the next months is for inflation to rise modestly and then fade back to a lower pace thereafter. But still, Biden presses Congress for more and more spending. We've added several $1 trillion to the debt this year, and he wants $4 trillion more. Despite the reality of inflation that keeps staring him in the face, he keeps spending more. It reminds me of an old Pete Seeger song we sang in the Vietnam era about an Army sergeant in basic training. He leads his troops into a swamp and the water level keeps rising. And he sings, we're knee-deep in the big muddy, and the damn fool kept yelling to press on. And eventually the captain's helmet comes drifting by. He drowned.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.